Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people who I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment. And today, I'm very happy to have with us on the show, very, very versatile artist from North Bay, Ontario, Sean Kelly. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Hey, Tommy, thanks for having me.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. So, as I mentioned to you before we hit record, I'm from North Bay, you're from North Bay, and I'm a few years older. And I know you've played with just about everybody who's anybody in Canada, and there's got to be a reason why you got into the music business or into the music in the first place. So what inspired you to pick up the guitar all those years ago?
I can pretty much trace it back to one artist and one song, Twisted Sister, and We're Not Gonna Take It. I became enamored of the hard rock music of the 80s. At first, it was with bands like Quiet Riot, Motley Crue. But there was something about that Twisted Sister song that just hit me, and the visual and seeing that video and the color and the power and the anthemic quality. That's what set the hook. And, the same can be said for all the great music that came out in the 80s. Really, that was what hooked me in. But it was first and foremost that beautiful power pop glam metal anthem, We're Not Gonna Take It.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to some of the newer music that you've done with Emm Gryner and Trapper, and I thought, This guy's definitely a student of the 80s guitar playing, that's for sure. Like, your playing style strikes me as kind of a combination of all those guys and gals from the 80s, to this listener's ears anyway.
Yeah, it's funny because really, Trapper's the only band I really get to play in that kind of style, in that 80s style. Even though I play with a number of artists who came to prominence in the 80s, those bands tend to have their roots more in the 70s and have kind of adopted more of that type of thing. So, and even Crash Kelly really leans more into the 70s style. But with Trapper, I definitely get a chance to play in that style. And I do love playing in that style. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that I can play a lot of that stuff, but I'm not that kind of a singer. I've done a couple of pickup gigs as a lead guitar player playing in a band of that nature. And it's just a lot of fun to do the Randy Rhoads and that kind of thing for me. And I don't get much of a chance to do that either. But back to you. So you've played with a lot of people, including Nelly Furtado. How recent was that?
Well, I was recording with her as recent as last year. She asked me to come in the studio with her, and we worked on some tunes. But really, in terms of actively performing, I think our last show together was probably in 2017. So it's been a while. Maybe 2018. I can't remember exactly. But when her last album, The Ride, came out, we did a little tour with that one. But, prior to that, I started playing with her in 2009. It was an absolutely amazing run. And she's an incredible artist. And it was an opportunity to see the world and play on stages I couldn't have imagined playing on. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
No kidding. And she is like a bird. Sorry about that. And another female artist that you've played with that kind of caught my attention was Lee Aaron. Now, Lee Aaron played here in London a few years ago, and a couple of friends of mine opened for her with the band Nail, Reiner and Cindy Viekman, who have also been members of Helix. Were you with Lee on that tour?
I was. I think we played at East Side.
The East Side. Yeah, the East Side Bar.
Yeah. And I think Reiner and Cindy were on that bill that night. So yeah, I have love playing with Lee. Still play with Lee, and have been fortunate to be brought into the writing and the recording records, and that's been we're celebrating 8 years now of playing together. And she's just a world-class vocalist, producer, songwriter, world-class talent. And it's such a joy to play with her.
Absolutely. And I'd love to have her on this show. Reiner and Cindy have played in my band over the years and been a big part of that. And Reiner is also an amazing guitar repair tech guy and luthier. And he's built a couple of really fine guitars for me. But
nice.
Yeah. So now it's interesting to know that you are more than just a guitar player and singer. And at one point you played bass guitar with Helix.
Yeah, that's how my relationship with Brian started, I had a chance to play bass with Helix, and I jumped it. I was bugging Brian Vollmer to be in Helix for years. So eventually, through time and pressure, and I have to say, the help of my friend Mitch Lafone, who recommended me. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, I had the opportunity, and then that actually blossomed into a writing relationship. It wasn't intended to be that; it just kind of happened, and that's a writing relationship that continues to this day. I'm even on. I played a little guitar and added some licks and a little bit of writing to the new Helix single that just came out, Not My Circus. So we're still working together. Brian and I are going to be working on some songs for a solo record. But yeah, going back to the bass thing, I played bass with Helix. I played bass with Rough Trade. And I also played bass with Gilby Clarke as well from Guns N' Roses. So I love playing bass. I played bass on the Trapper records, my Crash Kelly stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a great bass player, but it's been enough years now where I've kind of absorbed it, and I get just as much satisfaction really playing bass as I do guitar most of the time.
Well, if you were playing bass on the Trapper songs, then you obviously know the difference between playing lead guitar and playing bass guitar. You were playing for the song. And regardless of your role in a band, it should always be about playing for the song.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely. They're different beasts and they're different functions, and yeah, regardless of what I'm doing, I always try to serve the song.
Yeah, and that's why you have so much work, really. I'm sure we both could go on about virtuoso players that just, it's all look at me, and, wait a minute, somebody's singing. What are you doing?
Yeah, well, I guess everything has its time and place. When I was a kid growing up, I loved all those Shrapnel Records artists. I found that very exciting, almost in a punk DIY sort of sense, where it felt like there was this underground thing happening. And I still every once in a while I go on YouTube and just marvel at the technical prowess that kids have and great players. But as I get older, that's really the guitar is just a vehicle of expression for me, and music's really just about friendship and fellowship and making art and making people happy with art. So I do the best I can, and it's not an all-encompassing part of my life, but it's an important part of my life.
Well, music is the doctor, and for those of us who have it in our blood, you've got to have that outlet.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So what about your time with Coney Hatch?
Yeah, well, it's ongoing, and man, what a great rock and roll band. And I get to work with two of the great Canadian singers, hard rock singers of all time, and Carl Dixon and Eddie Curran. Wonderful contrast. Carl to play guitar beside Carl and play the parts of the great Steve Shelsky, I have to say too. Steve is an influence and an incredible guitar player. So I try to honor that by playing those parts as closely as I can, but still injecting my own personality into it, because you have to do that to honor the music. Dave Ketchum on drums. I mean, it's like having Ian Pace behind you or something. It's just an incredible rock and roll band, and very excited. We have a gig coming up April 22nd in Kitchener, Maxwell's. Hopefully some more dates coming up in the summer. We put out a live record actually during COVID. We had a chance when some of the restrictions were lifted to play at the El Macombo, the newly refurbished El Macombo, and we recorded and released the Live at the El Macombo record, a double vinyl, bootleg style, super cool. Andy had this great idea, hand stamped, it's pretty wicked. And that's actually getting a CD re-release because we sold out of the first editions. You can get that at rockpapermerch.com. Yeah, I love playing with Coney Hatch. They're a Canadian institution.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm curious, who are you playing the lead guitar solo on Monkey Bars?
Well, I copy what Steve Shelsky did, and I'll tell you, that's one every night where every eye goes on you if you're a guitar player, because it's one of the great Canadian guitar solos, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
And of course, it lifts famous Donna Lee by Charlie Parker, right? So it speaks to Steve's jazz training and Kim Mitchell's production aesthetic, that they brought this jazz thing in it from a different key into this hard rock tune. But man, it's it's a tough one. It's a tough one because I spell jazz ROCK. So
yeah, I've seen guitar players just about strangle themselves trying to play that solo. So kudos to you. Yeah, and being able to add your own flavor into it as well. But that's awesome. So How did you get connected with Emm Gryner?
Through the power of social media. I'm not a big fan of social media these days for a number of reasons I won't get into, but I will say this for the connectivity, it's a wonderful thing. And she saw back in 2013, I was on tour. I was in Asia. I was touring in Asia with Nelly, and she saw something, where I was playing with Nelly Furtado, but it also played in Helix, and she thought that was interesting because she loves 80s hard rock and has, she had worked with Carl Dixon, for example, from Coney Hatch, and produced her early demos. And she, she was on Def Leppard records. She's a big fan of the 80s. So she said, I got to meet this guy who, plays with Nelly Furtado on the pop side, but also works with Helix. And it was funny because I had just recently heard one of her songs called North on CBC. And I'd sent out a tweet saying, great Canadian artist, remind me of my hometown, North Bay. What a great song. And we saw these tweets and somehow connected and said, we gotta do a band. So we decided to get together, throw some ideas back and forth. I remember sitting I was in Singapore and working on songs in my hotel room and emailing her files back and forth. And eventually we came up with a song called Grand Bender. We said, oh, this is cool. We should do this, and we'll do a cover of a song we both love. We picked The Warrior by Patti Smyth and Scandal. We went in the studio, recorded it, and released it as a cassette single, which sold out and then did well. And we said, oh, this is fun. What a nice side project. And then, on a whim, I saw Def Leppard was coming through Canada, and I knew Em was friends with Joe and Def Leppard from her days when she played with David Bowie. And I said, oh, man, we should hit them up and see if we can open up. Well, Em phoned and then turned around and said, they want to open up. Only problem is we had 2 songs. So we wrote a bunch more songs, learned some covers, got a band assembled, and literally our second gig was at the Bell Center in Montreal, opening for Def Leppard. So it was a fast ascendancy into the big time here with Trapper, and it's still a project that's near and dear to our hearts. We actually put out an EP to go along with that tour and did it when we could. Em and I are both very busy. Her brother, Frank Gryner's in the band. He's a world-class engineer and mixer who's worked with everybody from Perfect Circle to Rob Zombie. Tim Timlick, who great drummer, plays with me in Carole Pope's band, my band Crash Kelly. So we were all busy, but we get together when we can, and we actually just put out a new EP this December called Songs from the Electric North that went along with a craft beer that Em and I were involved with, a company from North Bay called Gateway City Brewery. So Em and Sean's Electric North APA is now available from Gateway City Brewery, and you can also pick up a copy of the cassette when you get a 2-4. There you go. That's the story on Trapper.
Very cool. Now, are they distributing that beer throughout Ontario, or is it only available exclusively to North Bayites?
Right now, you can order it and have it delivered through various craft beer services. And I think it's in a few stores, but really you get it from a Gateway. I can't remember. It's gatewaycitybrewery.ca or gatewaycity.ca. But if you Google Gateway City Brewery, you'll be able to order it anywhere in Ontario.
Well, that's awesome. I might just have to do that.
Yeah, man, it's a good beer.
Well, I got to stop drinking the cheap stuff at some point. So, yeah. So now here's something else that I find very interesting is that you have kind of turned it down a notch when it comes to the touring in order to have a decent family life. And now you're teaching music in an elementary school. So how did you make that transition?
Well, it started a long time ago, actually. I studied classical guitar at the University of Toronto and University of British Columbia. And after that, I got into some bands and got a record deal. We won one of the bands, won a Q17 homegrown contest, got a deal with Aquarius Records, kind of went out and did a tour supporting Headstones and Holly McNarlin and, got dropped. So I was like, oh man, that was quick, so joined another band and had some success, had a US deal that fell through, but had a manager, did all those things, and that went away. And I saw myself, I was like, man, it's hard to pay the rent doing this original rock thing, right? And I said, if only I had something I could do to kind of keep myself busy and pay the rent while I'm still trying to put together a project. And I decided to go to teacher's college. I said, hey, look, you've got this piece of paper. Go another year, you get another piece of paper. I said, I'll be a supply teacher. That'd be something I could do. And I like teaching. I was a private guitar instructor for years. I said, yeah, this would be good. So I went to Nipissing University, teacher's college, and took that year. And even while I was doing that, I was still playing in bands. I remember having to fly out. One of the bands I was in, we got a factor grant. We went to LA and played at the Whiskey a Go-Go and shot a video on a weekend. And I flew back for teacher's college in the morning. So I was still playing and writing and doing that. But when I got back to Toronto, I went into supply teaching school, and I'll never forget it because I walked in, there's kids jumping on the desks. They were throwing things over. It was wild. They're telling me to F off. It was like, and I'm like a young guy, right? I'm 26. And I was just like, oh man, I don't need this. Anyway, I made it to the end of the day, and as I'm walking out, the principal goes, that was amazing. I go, amazing. I said, I lost control of the class. He goes, yeah, but you stayed all day. He goes, you've got to stay here. And I said, I'm not doing this. I know it. But I met these 3 women, and they were incredible mentors. And they said, no, you got to stay. You're staying, and you're going to teach here, and we'll show you how. And I stayed. I signed on for a contract for a year, and I taught this grade 7 class, and it was amazing. I had the best time with these kids, even though they drove me nuts, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was showing up, in all states of disrepair because I had a gig, a house gig every Thursday night at the B-side downtown. Principal didn't care. He was like, you know what, just keep coming. We'll make it work. So I ended up doing that, loving it. But that gave me some freedom because all of a sudden saying, oh, okay, I've got the latitude of having some money in my pocket. I got a place. And then I said, well, you know what? I don't have to worry about this. If this isn't my full-time career, being a musician, I'm just going to write songs I like. And I ended up I wanted to write something that I couldn't find on my record shelf. I wanted something that was a little bit of T-Rex, a little bit of Cheap Trick, a little bit of Thin Lizzy, a little Queen. And I ended up writing on my little 4-track the album that would become the first Crash Kelly record. I met up with a guy named Kai Anto, who played with Michael Monroe from Hannah Rocks and a few other people. And we went in, recorded the record on a shoestring budget with my friend Craig McConnell, and ended up getting a lot of interest and eventually signing a U.S. record deal. And I ended up taking time off school to pursue that and toured with bands like the Choir Boys in England and Enough's Enough and Alice Cooper across the States. And so it was great. And it was a good lesson in just doing what you want to do. And, I wouldn't even say classic rock, 70s glam influenced hard rock was not maybe the flavor of the month in the early 2000s, but, it had its moment with bands like The Darkness coming up. And we found an audience and it was what I really wanted to do. And I'm very grateful for those experiences. It led to us going to LA to record the Electric Satisfaction record with Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. And that led to a great friendship. And I ended up joining Gilby's band, touring South America with him. And, it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I can thank teaching for that, even though I had to step away from teaching to do it.
I get it. And, there's a lot to unpack there, but yeah, my brother-in-law is actually teaching in Nunavut right now.
Wonderful.
He's teaching grade 3 kids. And you talk about kids not staying. Sometimes he's got 3 kids in the class. But anyway.
I get it. I've taught up there.
The thing about having a day job that's secure as a musician, you kind of alluded to it, it frees you up to play what you want to play. And, the guys from Anvil, Steve Kudlow and Rob Reiner, a little known fact about those guys is that for the entirety of the time that it took for them to record their first 13 albums, they had day jobs. And that's how they could keep going with that brand of music for so long. Nobody knows this, but there's far too many artists out there that are dead set on making a living playing music, but they're not willing to play nursing homes and, play country gigs and whatever. So they're stuck whining about why they can't get signed, being a death metal band in Timmins.
Right.
So that's absolutely the right way to do it. And I found for myself, I haven't hit the heights that you have. I've had some decent accolades over the years and some pats on the back and some award nominations and whatnot. But I've never been happier with my own music than I have been since I started a day business that has given me the freedom to do what I want to do and simply create music that I love for the love of the music. It just gives you so much more freedom.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what you want to do, right? Like for those years where I was away from teaching and I doing other things, and then other gigs came up, and the Nelly gig came up, and it was amazing. Like, I mean, that was an amazing time of my life. I got 10 years of doing that, and it was wonderful. But to your point, I mean, it's very hard. And also the infrastructure that once existed for original musicians just doesn't exist anymore for most of us. Like, it is increasingly more difficult to find someone who will fund and support you as you are a developing artist. You basically have to come to the table ready to go. And then it's much, much harder, and especially post-COVID when the gigs all went away, it's getting harder and harder to do that. So the one thing that's remained steadfast is that there's always a creative impetus in an artist to create, and there's always an appetite for what they create. It's just we're navigating strange waters with, the monetary devaluation of music because of the greed of the digital distributors, or the digital aggregators, I guess we'll say, platforms. It's insane, right? So, and then the dearth of live venues has impacted that as well. It's a very tough time, but it's a good time to create relationships with your fans because you do have this connectivity. So there is a model out there. It's just going to take some building, and you have to go out and actually be able to cut through the noise of all the people, because now there's a democratization in music, which is a wonderful thing, but that means that there's a whole swath of digital information out there you got to get through to get your songs out. So challenging, but the good news and the bad news is if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. So it doesn't matter. An artist is going to art, as they say.
I agree 100%, and I think it only makes sense to make your music for the love of the music. And as an example, once the pandemic hit, aside from starting this podcast, I wanted to give people something to smile about. And this podcast was definitely one of those things. And I've also, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos on social media, but I've been posting me playing covers. And it's not It's not because I'm really into covers. In fact, when I go out live, 95% of my stuff is original. So I feel the pain about, trying to make something of it. But at the same time, it's a joy to be able to do your own thing. But the thing is that when I do these videos and I get comments from people, it's sharing the music, sharing the love. And isn't that what we're here for?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the noble side of it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, without the people, we don't exist. So.
Oh yeah, it's an emotional transaction, right? You have to have I think so anyway.
Yeah, and for me, I don't know how you feel about live shows, but I stopped playing bars a number of years ago for a lot of reasons, and I pretty much do outdoor festivals and soft seaters when I can. And there's nothing better, no better feeling for me than when we're into it and there's a bunch of little kids up at the front of the stage, just right up at the stage, dancing and singing along. Just to feel that joy to me is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. And I think you must have some of those emotional exchanges with the kids at school too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those are some of my most rewarding musical experiences are when, you see kids light up because of their engagement with music, and they make a connection, and they start to identify as creators, like that's a special thing. And yeah, it definitely, that's something that informs my teaching practice very much. It's about showing them that while, yeah, there are rules and there are techniques and there are things that exist out there, they're all just to access a special part of yourself, right? So that's where I'm coming from as a teacher.
Absolutely. And I taught a guitar club at a school here in London a number of years ago, and I had a lot of that feeling and emotion as well. So I get it. So let's just Before we call it a day here, Sean, let's just remind the people of what's going on with you now and where people can get your music.
Yeah, well, let's see what's going on now. Well, got some gigs coming up. We have a new Lee Aaron record that's going to be. I'm not sure when she's planning to release it, but we're almost done recording it. We recorded the bed tracks with Mike Fraser at the Armory Studio in Vancouver this past summer, and I know that Lee's working on the vocals, so that's coming up, as well as some live dates, including one in Sweden at Sweden Rock, which I'm excited about. There's some Carole Pope and Rough Trade dates coming up, Coney Hatch dates, and I'm working on a new Crash Kelly record, which I'm pumped up about, and then eventually there'll be a new Trapper record as well. Emm's actually working on a very cool solo record in Nashville right now, but we'll get together at some point in the summer and start working on a new Trapper record. So lots of stuff going on there, but the big thing that's taking my time right now is writing my second book. So my first book, Metal on Ice, came out 2013. So this new one's going to come out 10 years after, but it's a book about taking a look at the artistic intention and musical diversity and sonic development of hard rock in the 80s. So that's been lots of fun, talking to lots of cool people. And I've got 1 month to get that manuscript into my publisher, so working away on that. And there's also a documentary in the works. I can't really say too much about it because the ink's not dry yet, but I've been working as a producer on a documentary, so also music related. So there's some fun stuff going on, as well as, the teaching gig and the family life. And yeah, just trying to keep busy and make the most of the opportunities I've been blessed with.
Very cool. So I'm going to assume that the music is available on all streaming platforms. Do you also use Bandcamp?
I don't. Where I would direct people, if you want to get some of my solo classical guitar records or my Crash Kelly records, the ones that are available, you can go to rockpapermerch.com, and I have a Sean Kelly, Crash Kelly store there now. And that's where you can find that stuff, and there'll be more to come. That's where you'll be able to find the new Crash Kelly record. And you can also go on Facebook or Twitter, find Trapper, and find our music there.
Well, that's awesome. I want to thank you so much, Sean, for taking the time out of your busy day to do this with me. And I will let you get back to writing your new book. And until next time, cheers.
My pleasure, Tommy. Thank you.
Wow, what a nice guy Sean Kelly is. Man, I don't know how he finds time to sleep with all the work he's got, but wow, what can I say? I highly recommend that you head over to rockpapermerch.com and check out his stuff. Now, here for your listening pleasure is Sean Kelly on bass and guitar, along with Emm Gryner on lead vocals and their band Trapper, with the song Winter Long. Enjoy.
Till you came along and brought back one of the days.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including guest acquisition, recording, editing, and so on. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe and help support us through Patreon at patreon.com/TommySolo. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn. All rights reserved. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for listening, and until next time, cheers.